Welcome to the Bikini Things podcast, where we talk everything from fitness and mental health to competing and living a best lifestyle. I'm your host, IFBB Bikini Pro, Laura Morche, here with my co-host, IFBB Bikini Pro, Sammy Joe. And we're so happy you're here with us. Let's get started. How are you, Sammy?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Happy New Year. This is our first episode
First
of
podcast of
2025.
2025. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very exciting. And we've got some exciting things planned for this year. So our setup, look, guests, etc., may be changing in the coming weeks. We're super excited for that. So Sammy and I are working on different equipment setups. We have a physical space. We have some guests in mind. One thing I was thinking too, since I posted it this week, is maybe at some point Will comes back on the podcast. Will was on the podcast like 3 years ago when I used to do it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That would be super cool because I don't know much about him.
Yeah.
So I would love to learn more.
For sure. Yeah. The context. So right now I'm having Will Sage coach me in an off season. Now that I'm kind of getting over most of my gut health stuff, and he was on the podcast 3 years ago. That was a pretty popular episode. And he has a very successful coaching team, Precision Elite. He's turned athletes pro in basically every division. He coaches Britt Gillespie, who's a bikini Olympian. So he'd be someone great to have on the podcast.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future. How have things been for you, Sammy, this week? Like how's it been coming out of the little holiday fog that we all find ourselves in?
It's been good. Just trying to get back to some normalcy in life. I know I think we briefly talked about it, and I'm not dwelling on it. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but like officially didn't nail my reverse. So I'm like at a good level point where I'm about 10 pounds up from stage weight. So I'm just trying to like maintain that. So really just like dialing in and focusing on healthy habits and getting myself back into some normalcy and really just making sure it doesn't get any worse than it already is, or just worse than it is. I did get my blood work done. Like everything is at like the most perfect level it can be. So really excited and happy about that. But yeah, so just trying to get back on track and, still balance
Yeah. Yeah.
everything.
That's great. And that's awesome that you share it too. I think a lot of us will feel embarrassed if we're not crushing our reverse. Are you dealing with like hunger and things, or is it just more of like the holidays are a tricky time to be reversing, let's be fair.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a hunger thing because if I'm being honest, like my hunger levels aren't that high. It's more of just like, well, I can eat it and without repercussion, so why not do it, right? It's more so like it's honestly just a self-control thing. And I don't know if it's because I had maybe 3 months of an off season between my last two preps, or I don't know what it is. It's self-control is what it is, but it's just easy to say yes, right? Like if we're always on the go, like Chris and I both work from home, so it's like, and I just don't feel like freaking cooking. Like I just have no, like I'm just tired of it. So I'm like, if someone else can do the work for me, by all means, like do the work for me. But so I'm just trying to find my love for cooking again because I do love to cook. Like I love it. And like in prep, it's just a second nature. Sunday comes around, time to meal prep. Now I know I don't have to do that. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna take the easy way out and like we're not necessarily like, I will say my last reverse, we were eating out for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was that bad. This time we're like maybe 3 times a week. So it's not horrible, but still just like could have better control. So
Yeah.
easy to fix. And
Yeah.
then Chris is jumping back into prep here in a couple weeks. So that's kind of like helping us,
Yeah.
get us back on track. But
Yeah.
aside from that, we've been doing some home remodeling. So my life has just been in shambles.
Yeah. You guys got new carpets, right?
Yeah, we got new carpets. We redid Jacob's room. We started painting our room, like everything. Like for the longest time, like Chris and I were sharing a sink in our bathroom. Like I didn't even have access to my sink because everything
Yikes.
was just like in the bathroom. So
Uh-huh.
it's been interesting to say the least. But again, everything is like starting to like level out and get normal. So
That's
it's
good.
nice.
That's good. That's gotta feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get what you mean too with the reverse, because also your prep was fairly long. I think the longer we're on prep, usually the more natural it is to kind of have a rebound.
Hmm.
So I think it's more of almost like a mental fatigue or something like
Yeah.
that. Like you said, you're just tired of cooking. Like you've been doing it on point you did it for so many months in a row. Like when did your prep actually start last year?
March.
And then your last show was what date?
November 16th.
November. Yeah, so it was literally 8 months out of yeah, dang.
Yeah, and my prep in 2023 was March to November as well.
Yeah.
So I literally had like a three, actually, I think it was like September or
Was
October.
Iron Games your last one, or did you did Sasquatch after that?
Sasquatch was my last one. So I think that
Okay.
was
March
September.
to September. Yeah.
Yeah.
March to
So I
mid-September.
had maybe a 4 month off season and then jumped right back into prep. And again,
Yeah.
because I didn't reverse properly, my prep from the start was really aggressive.
Mhm.
So I did have a diet break with Paul once I did that switch over for maybe like 3 weeks. And that was just to get my food a little bit higher up. But I was still like in prep. It was just like a diet break of like more food.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and again, like it's never perfect, right? You know, some people have great reverses, and you know, I've been seeing everybody that I've competed with like nailing reverse week 3, week 4, week 6, and I'm like, that's freaking great, good for you. Like,
Yeah.
and you know, everybody, you know, that is great, right? I am happy. Like, obviously, there's like a part of me that's bitter because obviously I didn't stick to my word. But you know, I did what was best for me, what I felt was best for me, and I'm just dealing with the repercussions. And you know, it is what it is. But to
Yeah.
be able to speak about it, I think it is like you mentioned, one thing that most people don't talk about. So it's like, all right, well, if I can do anything, it's talk about it, you know,
Mhm.
and just let people know that it's not something to be ashamed of. It's like, yeah, you made a promise to yourself and you broke it. Is that a shitty feeling? Yeah, I can't even keep a promise to myself of sticking to something that I wanted to do. But, you know, you live, you learn, and you just move forward and make sure you don't slip too far out to where you
Yeah.
can't come back from it.
Yeah. For sure.
So it's like, am I comfortable? Not necessarily, but I know what to do to fix it. So
Yeah.
it's what it is.
And like to put it in perspective too, like let's be real, you're still a really new competitor, Sammy. So I think some of the things that you're figuring out, a lot of these ladies who you might be referring to, right, that are pros and, you know, talking about how awesome their reverse is, have been
Yeah.
competing for like 6, 7 years when your first show was 2022.
Yeah.
2 years ago. So it's like I think a lot of that gets ironed out when you're like an amateur competitor, and it's like you turn pro so quickly that it's like a lot of stuff for you. It's like you're still learning just because like
My
there is a
first.
learning curve no matter how fast we kind of move up in the ranks. Like competing is still, there's so much to it.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, and I love your point too, because I also think that's a great way to frame it too. A lot of us, like I always say I've had 8 preps, 6.5 of my reverses were perfect. And I was that person where I'm like, I'm 7 weeks post show and I am only 5 pounds up, you know, like I was that person.
Yeah.
Right. And then 1.5 of them were pretty bad. And so I've had both experiences. And with both of them that were not so great, like I think especially my first year as a pro when I sprained my ankle and I kept prepping through that, which was likely a mistake. I got to a point where I was like 15 pounds up really quickly. And granted, I'm 6 feet tall, so 15 pounds spreads out pretty well. But I knew I was eating so many cookies. I'd ordered way too many cookies. And I was just really sad about how the season went. I was injured. My mom was having a lot of health issues. So I was just, I think, mentally not fully there. And
Yeah.
I got to this point where I was 15 pounds up. I'm eating all these cookies, literally was just giving them away or throwing them away. And I'm like, Laura, just cut it out. We're done. Like we had our fun. Like that's enough,
Yeah.
and let's get serious again. And so it wasn't that long because my weight did shoot up pretty quickly, and that happens especially if your body's inflamed or holding water. But then from there I stabilized really well. I had a great off season that year. You know, I forget how long I actually took off. So I think that year I would have taken from about maybe like August until March or April. So not a crazy long off season, like 6 months. It's not bad. But again, when you're tall, you need like long building phases.
Yeah.
So, I turned it around, and I think that you're doing the same thing. So I think it's a great example to share for other people. None of us are perfect. Like we can pretend as much as we want, like on social media or whatever, that we are, but that's not real life. Like nobody's perfect. We all have our, weaknesses or choices we make that we wish maybe we could have done differently, but it's like we can't go back and change things. So you're handling it in a way where I think is super smart. And yeah, if you maintain where you're at, your body's going to stabilize, and it's basically like you're going to finish your reverse and just let everything stabilize, and then from there you can move on to a building phase, or your family phase, or whatever is next for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've realized too, I like fell victim of like, well, I'm just not going to post on Instagram because if no one sees me or knows what I'm doing, then they're just not going to know what happened. But I'm like, all right, well, that that doesn't make sense, right? You're just literally sheltering yourself. So I'm going to start slowly posting again and just embracing where I'm at, because again, like you said, it's still new. I'm still learning. So it's like, why not share that experience for someone else? Like, and I feel like that's, the most I can do now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. To normal people, I think we judge ourselves so harshly. Like, to normal people, we still look insanely fit and attractive, to normal standards. It's only to ourselves that we tell ourselves we look fat or we look bad, or like any of those like negative, I'm using all these in like air quotes. It's any of those negative words, it's only in our heads. Nobody else really sees it like that.
100%. A
So sometimes,
hundred
yeah,
percent.
sometimes remembering that is helpful
Yeah,
too.
it's like I still have more muscle mass than the average human.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think most women, Sammy, would like give their left arm to look like you, like just like the average female. Because think about it this way too, like the average, like if we truly talk average female, like the average female in the US is overweight, and about half of the average women are obese. So 30 pounds or more overweight. Like, yeah, most women would, do a lot to try to look like you if they could, or to switch places with you. Right. So
That's
sometimes we just
awesome.
have to be nicer to ourselves.
100%.
So cool. I'm trying to think what else has been going on since we last caught up. I know we have some listener Q&As. I don't think I have much else. I think, the season is about to kick off, so we don't have shows to talk about yet. We have the first Fit Model show in about 3 weeks, a
Are you
little
going
less
to the
than 3
LA
weeks.
Fit Expo?
Yeah, because I've got two clients in it
I'll be there.
for Toxic Angels or
Well, I'm going just to like check
Go.
out the expo, yeah, to see if it's potentially a good move for us to have a booth there next year. So,
Yeah, we'll see. The LA Fit Expo, it's cool. Like a lot of things, it's not, to me, it's not as impressive as it was before COVID.
yeah,
But it's still a fun event. And then there's going to be a muscle contest both days. So the Saturday is the regular NPC show, and then the Sunday is the natural show. And both
nice.
shows should have the fit model division. So that'll be literally the first one in the entire country. So it'll be really cool. It'll be really
Yeah,
cool. And I may
I'm
have
excited.
at least one client doing fit model in the February show. So that's also going to be one of the first shows of the
Yeah,
year.
that's exciting.
So that'll be neat. Yeah, so those are the main things. So should we go through some of these questions that we got?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
I can start. The first one that I have is pretty simple, but a really good question because I feel like this comes up a lot. Best gifts for someone on prep that will help them succeed besides things like a scale or workout equipment.
Cute gym clothes?
Yes, that's the first thing
Correct.
that comes to mind, honestly.
Correct.
The only answer, the only right answer.
Yeah, cute workout clothes, cute workout shoes.
Yeah, I would say like even so if someone's like in prep to compete, like a gift card to Toxic Angels is a great gift.
Yeah,
Like, or a posing suit, right? If you know the person really well and you know like what their favorite color is, or if you see a pattern that you know they would like, getting them a posing suit is a great idea, or just a gift card, right, for them to buy one that they like. Also a great idea. I had someone recently, actually, it was a friend of a posing client of mine, she bought 4 sessions for her and like gifted posing sessions. I thought it was the sweetest thing ever.
yeah, yeah.
So that's
Hmm.
a great
Yeah,
idea too. Just thinking of like all of the things that people spend their money on in prep, and it's like, where can you alleviate, a cost for them or something like that.
yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, alleviating the costs. And we see that a lot, right? With the Toxic Angels, sometimes you'll have like husbands like coming in and paying for the suits and stuff for their wives. So that's or boyfriends. So that's always nice. Or, a shoe fairy gift card, right? Like a pair of heels or
Yeah,
a gift card, right? Those are great. The workout clothes, I mean, it sounds silly, but I think that's just it's so motivating when you have a cute outfit.
100%.
Like, I feel like nothing is more motivating to have a great workout than when you have a cute outfit on.
100%. Like that is, I think that's the most underestimated. And I feel like it's funny because like everyone makes a joke about it, but it's so true. Like
Mhm.
when you know you have a cute outfit on, you feel good. So that means like you're just going to push that much harder. And it's like, yeah, maybe it's a superficial thing, but like I feel like studies can prove that it's there's a science behind it. You know what I mean? Like there needs to be a study somewhere done on a
Yeah.
cute gym fit makes your workout better.
Yeah. We've got to figure out that exercise physiology
Yeah.
study. So,
Um,
I'm
is
trying to
there
think of
anything
anything
else?
else.
Maybe like if they use a meal prep company, like gifting them, or even just like if they don't use a meal prep company and it's like, hey, here's a gift card to, wherever,
Mhm.
meal prep for yourself or buy meal prep this week instead of having to do it yourself, like things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, depending on the person again, maybe like a Starbucks or Dutch Brothers gift card or something. I mean, we have our coffee pretty plain in prep, but it's one of those things you can go out and get. And so I know when I'm in prep, I do a lot of like with friends, we'll do like coffee dates and
Hmm.
stuff like that, just because it is something outside of what you cooked at home. Or if, again, depending on the person, if that person is, say, um, like girly or even for their show day, right? Get them a gift card to their nail salon, right?
Oh,
Get
yeah.
cover their show day nails, or if they're just a person that always has their nails done, like things like that. It's offsetting costs or just any of those things like your outfit or personal care, things that just help you feel good and help you feel confident. We all know prep is super mental. So anything you can do to bolster your confidence, I always think is really, really helpful.
Yeah, that just reminded me too, like you said, things that make you feel better. So like a massage or body
Yeah.
work, something like that.
Yeah. And that's a great point too, actually. I didn't even think about that one. That's a great point because that's actually going to help your physique. If you're getting like deep tissue massages and you're getting all those knots worked out in your muscles, or if you've got a little bit of, like, for myself, I have a little bit of scoliosis, so like getting my back worked out and making sure everything's open and like all of that, it makes a difference with the physique you actually put on stage. So something like that
Hmm.
could also be super valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are all really great things. And I'm again, it's going to vary person to person, like who you're buying the gift for, but I feel like those are definitely some general but very specific and helpful things.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. So the question I had, this was an interesting one for me. Let me find it. What has been one life lesson you've had to relearn more than twice?
Lesson.
I have one related to competing I can share.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I would say with competing, I don't know if I've learned it more than, I'm sure I've learned it more than twice, but I've definitely learned it more than once, is to not have expectations. If you have expectations going into shows, that's a really good way to get your feelings hurt and to just take the outcome of any competition a little harder than it needs to be. And I think for myself, I learned this as an amateur. I lost a lot before, I lost often when I first started. I was so small. And then I started getting better. And I think at that point, I didn't have expectations because I had just finished getting my butt kicked so many times. And so when I did start winning, I was like, oh, wow, okay, I guess I'm getting better at this. Right. And then when I turned pro, I think I had some expectations that I would do better than this. And I think a lot of us, it's kind of natural to have that at your pro debut because you just believe in yourself. You just won your pro card and you can you get a reality check pretty quick when you go out and compete and you land in like the third or fourth call out at a pro
Hmm.
show. And then I think not last year, but in 2023, when I competed that season, that was a time I had to learn it again. I felt so good about the physique I was bringing, and I had more muscle than I'd ever had. And I was getting like so many compliments, or my friends who are Olympians, literally messaging me and telling me, like, Laura, if the judges don't see the improvements, they're blind, or like, you're going to go to Olympia this year. And as much as I want to pretend like that stuff didn't affect me, I think I really internalized it and I expected a certain placing, not necessarily a win, but I think I expected I would at least like place higher in the shows that I did. And when the season didn't go that way, or it was just clear that like my body was just flattening out in front of my eyes at the end of prep, it was like, that's not what's going to happen. It was very hard to deal with. Like, it was mentally very hard to deal with. And that's why the two reverses that haven't gone well, 2023 is one of them in my mind, because it caused me to just feel more down, and I wasn't regulating my emotions well enough at the beginning of my reverse to get it together. And so I think I was, eating my feelings, which a lot of us do from time to time, before I reeled it in. But that was a tough lesson to learn. And so I don't think I'm going to learn that lesson again, just because it was so hard. And I see how muscular Bikini is, and it's like, I just don't know at my height if I'll ever, don't never say never. Like, if I blasted off on, a cocktail of 4 or 5 anabolics at once, maybe things would be different. But it's like, I just don't know if I'll ever be big enough for the division. I'm just going to do my best and see what happens. And that's like, it's unfortunate because I feel like I've kind of given up a little bit on this dream that I had, but you have to face reality sometimes. And it's like, when the top girls, Laura Lee, she's gorgeous, she's beautiful, she's still 5 inches shorter than me. So,
Yeah.
and she's jacked. Like, how am I going to get that big? So it's it's one of those things. I don't think I'm going to have to learn that lesson again.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like you handle it really well, because a lot of people would just still be in delusion or like blame someone else. Whereas you kind of take it, accept it, and then you're like, all right, well, I'm not going to necessarily give up. I'm going to try my best, see what my options
Yeah.
are, and then go from there, right? It's like you even said, it's like you feel like you've kind of given up, but you still have that spark and that fire to keep going, right? Like,
Yeah.
you still have this goal and this dream. So I think that's what's like most important there for sure.
Yeah. 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 And it's, I guess it's not that, maybe not giving up, but it's like, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I can, do my best this year. And there are lines I'm not going to cross. Like, I don't want to be overly virilized. Like, it's
Hmm.
just, that's just a me thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Muscle looks beautiful. I love the look of every division, but I just know for myself, like, my personal choices are what they are. And I wouldn't feel comfortable taking anabolics to the point that I completely change who I am in the pursuit of winning. But there are lines I won't cross, and not everyone approaches it this way. And also, it's a little different if you've got a 5'1" frame versus a 6-foot frame. It's always going to take the taller person longer.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah. How about you, Sammy? Have you thought of any life lessons you've had to learn more than once?
Yeah, I feel like ever since I started and this is more on like a career side as opposed to like a competitor side, but I guess this could be competitor too. Working for yourself is hard. It's not easy. It's this dream that everybody has and they want, right? They want the time freedom and the ability to work for themselves and not be stuck to a 9 to 5. But realizing that success is only going to come if you actually put the work in is something that I've had to remind myself a handful of times, right? So it's like, you can get by or you can be extremely successful, and there's a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, if you have this goal or this big picture, you are the only person that is going to achieve that big picture, right? If you're working for like a corporate company, you're just clocking in 9 to 5, getting a job done, maybe climbing a ladder, and that's it. But as an individual working for themselves, of course, you're going to create this bigger picture for yourself. It's very, I get humbling, might be the word, to realize that like there is nobody else around you to achieve that goal for you. You are the one. So I feel like that's something I'm reminded of frequently, because sometimes I do slip into like I work for myself, I don't have to stick to a time constraint or anything like that. And then I realized like, hey, you're actually not really progressing forward, like, because you're just stuck at this stagnant point of like comfort. So unless you step out of your comfort level and
Yeah.
actually do more, that's when you're going to achieve that big picture goal. So I feel like that's something I'm reminded pretty frequently, that it
Yeah.
just comes back around of like, hey, you're starting to get comfortable in where you're at. And I will say I'm really grateful. Like, Chris is the biggest person, or like the biggest factor of like, hey, this is what's happening. Like, you haven't progressed forward. Like, the reminder. So that's super, super nice. And I'm really thankful for that because that's not, the case for everybody. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you guys are great together, and I feel like I've seen that a little bit too. I mean, Chris is also like, I feel like he supports us doing the podcast
Oh,
and
for sure.
all of that. So yeah, having that person that will be like real with you is awesome. And I completely relate to what you're saying too. That's a great one because you're right. Nobody else is going to go achieve your goals for you. Nobody is going to work harder for your goals than you will. Even if you can get people to help you, they're not able or capable of doing what you can do for yourself. And if you have a big picture in mind, like you also don't want to waste time. Like it's easy to think like, oh, I can do that later, tomorrow, later, I'll start next year. No, time flies by. Time flies by. Nothing's
100%.
promised, like especially with everything going on down here in Southern California. Like, so many people have lost like so much of their lives. Like literally tomorrow's not promised. So if you're not actively really pushing for the life you want to live or the things you want, they're not going to happen. And that's going to be a lot probably harder to live with than the pain of getting outside of your comfort zone and just continuing to push forward with what you want.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like, even that, like, the time flies by. Like, I've been working for myself for 3 years now. And it's like, yeah, I'm doing great. Don't get me wrong. But like, I could be so much further.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
I am the only reason that hasn't happened. So it's like, that's where, like, even just like, sitting down and being real with yourself, like, what am I doing? What could I be doing? And what could I be doing differently? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that scenario too, Sammy, I mean, you have your hands on a lot of things. I'm right there with you. I think I left my job right around when you did.
Hmm.
Same thing. Like March will be 3 years since I left my job. And I feel the same way to some extent. Like, yeah, I'm always like my own harshest critic. I'm really like internally, I'm super hard on myself. But I feel like this year I'm really poised for the growth that I've been wanting. And that's exciting. So sometimes too, I think one thing is also like sometimes the things that we want also don't happen on our timeline. Like
Hmm.
things we want, whether it's like a relationship or a promotion or your pro card or whatever. If you're doing the things you need to do, they'll happen, but it
Hmm.
may come a little later than you wanted. And that's not necessarily the end of the world. Like I wanted to get my pro card like most people at my first year competing. And I was smart enough not to hop in national shows back then. And it took me the time it did, but I'm grateful for it. And I felt like that journey and that struggle allowed me to appreciate it and
Hmm.
appreciate the work I had to put in to improve versus if I had just, jumped in first year and gotten lucky or something, which, flies, snowball's chance in hell, but with how small I was. But yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, yeah, I feel like for both, I mean, even like it goes life or competing. So like both of those life lessons are definitely something that you can carry, you know, outside and inside of the sport, which is good.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So the next question I have is recovery after breast augmentation, how to start over. So for me, my situation is kind of weird. So
Yeah.
I have what I like to call COVID boobs. My breast augmentation surgery, March
No
of
way.
2020.
Dang.
COVID hit a week later.
Hmm.
So my situation, I hadn't even started competing yet. I got mine done, before competing was even a consideration thought in my mind. So naturally for me, the gyms were closed. Like there was nothing I can do but recover and basically start over just like everybody else was, right? Like we were going to like underground gyms, whatever was open at the time, masks at choose, like so I was naturally getting back into it anyway, slowly. So I was doing, little at home workouts here and there. Like, and I knew, I could only do lower body for a little bit and then slowly transition back into upper body. So, like, I feel like my recovery, I don't know. I don't know if you remember COVID clearly, but it was a blur to me. So like when I think of like my recovery, I'm like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Like I was on the couch for maybe 2 days and then I was fine.
Hmm.
But that was because training wasn't in the forefront because it couldn't be in the forefront.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I remember COVID pretty clearly that so you have COVID boobs. I like to say I have a pandemic pro card
Pro
since
card.
I
That's right.
yeah, so we both have possessions that are
Accomplishments.
valuable to us from that time. Um and there was I was doing the same thing. I was going to underground gyms. One of my girlfriends was like training people at an underground gym, so I'd go train with her as often as I could because that would give me an actual gym. And then I was doing these crappy patio workouts with the most random equipment, but I would just, even if I had to do 30 reps, 40 reps in a set of something to get to failure, like I was just training as much as I could. Um, to keep making progress, right? And then when gyms were a little more open in the summer, I could actually prep. But with a breast augmentation, there's actually two things to consider. Um, Whether you're over or under the muscle, that's going to make a big difference in your recovery. And I don't know why, I really don't understand why doctors recommend this. I don't know if it's just because like they went to med school way too long ago or something. So many doctors for fitness girls recommend under the muscle, which is honestly like it's a horrible idea. It's a horrible idea. And I don't know why it's always recommended. And I don't think these doctors understand what we actually do and things like that. And the only reason I've ever heard to justify it is that it's more natural looking. So,
Okay.
with that in mind, with it under the muscle, your pec muscle is actually going to be cut. So the recovery is a lot longer than when it's over the muscle. Like mine are called, it's over the muscle, but it's the more specific term is subglandular, meaning that it's over the pec, but it's under the pec fascia. So there's a little more coverage of the implant. So it looks more natural, but I didn't actually have to get my pec muscle cut. And my upper body training has never once been impacted. Like I literally don't, this is like a personal mission of mine. Like I should start like a little like charity campaign or something like, and under the muscle, boob jobs for bikini
Yeah.
competitors. Because the thing is, they also, I'm like getting really excited. They also don't look as good too when you get super lean. I guess it depends if you've had any issue like a rippling of the implant or if you've had capsular contraction or something. But over the muscle, your recovery time, like it took me a few days. I think within 4 days, I was back at work meetings. Like the first day, obviously, you cannot press through your hands because that connects to your chest. So you need people to help you even just to get up, to like lift yourself up out of bed, to go to the bathroom if you need to. Like you do need that person with you, just like immediately post surgery for anything. But then within 2 to 3 weeks, you're usually cleared to do like cardio, light lower body. So that can be things like bands, like booty bands. That can be, for example, you could hop on the leg extension machine. And since you're just using a pin, you're not really using your upper body. And as long as you're not getting your heart rate crazy high, because the main thing immediately post surgery is they don't want your heart rate so high that your blood pressure increases and your sutures could rip, right? That's why you have to be mindful really with any surgery, exercising after. But then, light legs progress pretty quickly to, okay, I can go heavier. And then upper body, you typically start with things that don't involve the chest first. So things like rows or arm movements where it's very isolated, like a bicep curl, if you keep your shoulder completely stationary. If you do triceps, and again, you keep your shoulder to your elbow completely stationary. And then you work your way towards like shoulder movements, like lateral raises, front raises, then to presses, then to chest movements. And I think for myself, I think within like 6 weeks, I was training everything again, including chest, like maybe within 2 months. So I took it slow, but I also like didn't want to lose out on time. Whereas if you get a surgery where it's under the muscle, your doctor may tell you no exercise for 6 to 8 weeks. And so that's going to have a big impact, right, on not only your ability to make progress in a given year, right? Because that might be 2 months of just no exercise. That can also affect your body composition if you allow yourself to fall into bad habits and you're not paying attention to food and you're not active. Very easy body composition, body fat can jump up. And then it's still the same process. Like the first things you're going to be cleared for again are going to be like cardio, light legs. So it's that same process of like, okay, do your booty bands, do the leg machines where you're not actually having to lift plates, do the leg machines where you can put a pin and not lift anything. Like go ham on go sit on the abduction machine and do a million sets, or go sit on the hamstring curl machine, or leg press. If it's the leg press with the pin, that's also a good option. So you can actually get pretty good workouts, especially if you're creative or if you have your coach say help you. But yeah, I think those are the main things.
Yeah.
So.
And it's funny. So like, because fitness was not in the forefront, mine are under the muscle. So that's what I'm trying to think. Like, for me, it was weird too, because my post-op surgery, because I was still at work and I couldn't miss that many days. I got surgery on Friday. My post-op appointment was Saturday, and I was back to work on Monday. At
Oh,
the
wow.
time, I was an office admin, so I just sat at a
Hmm.
desk, right? And if I worked, it was a male dominated industry. So if I needed help, even if it wasn't, I guess, if I needed help grabbing something from high up or lifting, I would just ask a coworker to do it
Yeah.
for me. So, really thankful for that scenario because I was fine. But, then again, a couple weeks after that, a lot of things were closing down. I was still at work for the most part. But I will say, I do notice like when I get super lean, they look so different. And what's really funny is that now that I'm in an off season and I have more body fat, they look so small because they just kind of like blend with everything else, if that makes sense. Um, so it's like,
Really?
yeah. So
I
it's
would think
like,
they look bigger, right? Or no?
no, I don't know if maybe it's just me and it's like body dysmorphia or what, but like when I get super lean, they get bigger. They look bigger. And now that I have more body fat and everything is just blending more, they look smaller because they're not as like projected.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to look at an anatomy chart because I feel the opposite. Mine get smaller when I'm lean, and then they get bigger when I gain my body fat back.
Interesting.
We're gonna look into this. Maybe we'll do a science lecture one day.
We'll compare.
Like where, because I yeah, it's interesting because like when you get that lean, number one, you lose any natural breast tissue. So I don't know about you, Sammy, but I was like maybe a 34AB before I got mine. So I had a little, just not very much. And so whatever I naturally have like disappears on prep,
Yeah.
and then it kind of comes back. So I don't know. It's like where is that sitting,
Yeah.
in relation to the implant?
Yeah. It's such a weird concept because now I'm like, wow, they're really small. Maybe I should go bigger. Because like when I did get mine, I literally went as big as I could. Like the doctor was like, this is how much I can put in. I got 500 cc's. I was like 34A. I had
Yeah.
nothing. And
Yeah.
he's like, this is as much as I can put in your body without um the possibility of uniboob, right?
Yeah.
Tearing the center. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Like as big as we can go, right? Because that was one thing. Every time, and this has nothing to do with starting over, but just tips. Everyone always says you'll wish you went bigger.
Hmm.
You'll wish you went bigger. And that was like the one thing that everyone was telling me. And I was like, all right, well, I don't want to wake up and wish I went bigger
Yeah.
because I don't want to have to get them redone. So I woke up and like, thankfully I was like, and I am still really happy with them, but I have put on more muscle. My frame is bigger than it was
Yeah.
5 years ago. So now I do want them bigger. But I
Yeah.
had that thought in my head of like, I went as big as I could possibly go. So like, I didn't have that regret of like, I wish I went bigger because I couldn't have gone bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, and to be fair, I would say like especially remember when you got like your newest suit, the one that's the velvet jade. Your boobs
Yes.
looked huge this year. Like let's be
Yeah.
real, your boobs looked huge. So if you go I mean, I guess it depends on like what I know you guys have family plans and stuff like,
Yeah.
coming up. So depending on what your competition plans are, it's like I think if you go bigger, Sammy, like they might be too big.
Yeah.
Like that might be all they see.
I already had people asking if I got my boobs redone because of the molded top. Like,
Yeah.
if you want bigger boobs, get the molded top from Toxic Angels.
Yeah.
Honestly, it'll do wonders.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting. When I got mine done, it was funny. I was still so small back then because I did mine 2017. So it was like in between my first and second show.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have five, and they were like really big on me, like huge. And I was so determined to hide them from my engineering coworkers. I would wear these like loose tops and I would basically just wear sports bras all the time or like bras that
Mm-hmm.
would like push them down. And they probably knew.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were like too big for my body. And I feel like over the years I've grown into them. So I have that thought every once in a while of like going bigger, but I'm like, I don't think I'm there yet.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, maybe a
And
few more years.
we were kind of in the same because, like, you had a very male dominated industry too, right? So it was like, totally
Yeah.
get me.
Yeah. And it's like I didn't want them to, judge me. There were only a couple women in there. And sometimes this is maybe a little bit not PC, but it's true. sometimes working in male dominated industries, and for myself, like I was a project manager, I have to make sure I come off as competent. And if
Yes.
they just look at me like some bimbo who's getting her boobs done, who's getting like lip filler, that's going to impact how they see me. So,
100%. Yeah. And
there's a
I
reason.
was off. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying there's a reason for trying to be modest.
Yeah, yeah, I was the office admin. So I was like, I was doing time cards. I was, literally basically like micromanaging each little outlet of the business. And then I moved into sales. So it was like you have this feeling of like trying to prove yourself in this industry, and you don't, they already look down on you because you're a female. So it's like you do all of these things to like change your appearance, and then it's like, I'm doing this for me. Sit down, like keep your comments to yourself.
Yeah.
But But yeah, so those were the two questions that I had. Did you have any more?
Yeah. Let me go over some of these. Oh, this one, I think it's a supplement question. It just said prep must have supplements, vitamins, greens, etc. So I think she's referring more to common supplements in prep. And then I also got one about tips, like best tips for amateur competitors.
You
So
want to
what
start
would
with the supplement one?
yeah, why don't we start with that? What would you say are like the needed or basic supplements in a prep?
Yeah, I would say the first things that come to mind are like vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc for immune system, right? If we're in prep, we're really putting stress on our body. We're probably doing lots of cardio, so chances of getting sick are higher. So I always tell my girls those are like the first and foremost for like immunity health, or like for your immune system, just to avoid sickness in prep as much as we can. I would say like glutamine, glucosamine are both great. Glutamine helps with digestion and recovery, and then glucosamine helps with joints. So if you're pushing hard, both of those are going to be super helpful with that. Let's see what else. Like an L-carnitine fat burner.
Yeah, I always like L-carnitine. That's a really good non-stimulant fat burner. So even if you're using a stimulant-based fat burner, you can use those together. Those are two different methods to burn body fat. So I like both for sure. And L-carnitine, it's, comes from meat. It's very benign, very safe supplement. And pretty much basically everyone can take that. Creatine, I also think is great, whether you're natural or enhanced. If you're, say, taking clenbuterol or your kidney health is not the best, maybe skip it, but that would be the one exception. Otherwise, if your kidneys are healthy or you're not taking something like Clen that's going to put more stress on the kidneys, you're probably fine to keep that in every day. What else? You said like a multivitamin and stuff.
I did not.
I forget all the
I
things you
said
left off.
CD, zinc,
Huh. Zinc,
glutamine,
for
glucosamine.
me, usually what I check is depending on if they have a multivitamin already, sometimes you can take too much zinc. Zinc can have toxicity. So I like to just check the total milligrams that they're taking in of that because it's in multivitamins too. That one, probiotics, kind of case by case. Some clients may come to you and have, like, if somebody has digestive issues, that may be a sign of gut dysbiosis, which a probiotic may not necessarily help in that case. So for that individual, you probably want to look a little deeper. If somebody has, say, if you look in their labs, they have elevated glucose or hemoglobin A1C, they may do well with supplements that help with their blood sugar. There's like berberine. There's other things you can take for that. Obviously, your diet is huge, but there are supplements as well that can help with blood sugar regulation. So it really depends. I mean, everybody's a little bit different, but yeah, those basics of like C and D, I always want to have somebody taking. A greens powder is great. I don't think it's necessarily like a must have. I did greens powders every day for I don't know how many years, and then the last couple of years I haven't done it every single day. But I liked it on prep. It was something that I could drink that wasn't water. So it was just
Yeah,
like when you want variety or you're like hungry between meals, if you drink your greens powder, it just gives you something to do.
yeah.
Oh, what else? Other things that can be great would be like turmeric. Turmeric can be great if you have, say, like a little bit of joint pain or for those who say are enhanced in taking anabolics, that can be a good one because it does have a slightly blood thinning effect. And anabolics have a blood thickening effect that, can lead to heart health issues. So
Hmm.
that can be a good one just to keep in for just general health,
Yeah.
and reduce just systemic inflammation in the body.
Magnesium is another good one
Yeah,
for
anything
sleep
for
and just
sleep,
cortisol management.
yeah. Yeah, and most adults, like not necessarily bodybuilders, but most average adults, I think like 90% of adults are deficient in magnesium, like in the US, just as average. So that's a really good one. There's so many.
I'm
Digestive
trying to think what
enzymes.
I take every morning.
I have so many, especially too, because I still have my gut supplements in there a little bit. So it's like I have like a pill organizer and then like other pills and then pills I'm supposed to take with every meal. And it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
So
One thing I do want to mention in terms of like supplements and stuff like that, that's good to note. I have come across or like I've met people who like the gummy versions of
mhm.
vitamins. So when you're in prep, the what would you consider that? Like the method of vitamin or the form of the vitamin
Yeah, in
is
prep,
super,
just no gummies. Like in prep, just
yeah,
no gummies.
because you have to consider they're going to have extra added things. If they're gummies, they're going to have carbs in it. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather eat my carbs in a whole nutrition source than a gummy.
Yeah. Or just,
Or,
if your coach has you on a meal plan, it's like you're not doing yourself a favor like reducing whole foods to eat, pure sugar
yeah,
out of a gummy.
yeah, that and like some greens powders have it. Even just like some
Yeah.
energy, like this isn't part of because an energy drink's not a supplement, but like if you're considering drinking like a monster, sugar-free monster for energy or an Alani nutrition or whatever it is, like keeping in mind those little things. This is so off topic, but like we're talking about extra calories in prep now.
No, that's a good point though. It's a good point.
And those are all just things to consider because they're gonna add up, right? Like there was a point in prep and I realized this fast, but I was drinking like 2 or 3 Alanis a day. And they're each like 3, 4, 5 grams of carbs in it.
Oh, okay.
Granted, no sugar, but like that's 15 grams of carbs. Like that's a lot. Like
Yeah.
if you think in like the grand scheme of it, right? So it's like, and if you don't realize or you're not taking that into account in your carb intake, it's like, all right, well, now if you're on a low carb day and you're doing 50 grams of carbs, well, you're really doing 65 grams of carbs, right? And like that can make or break,
Yeah, when
changes
you're
week
when
over
you're
week.
because it's like your coach may only need to adjust your calories by something like 50 calories a day to if your weight is plateaued to stimulate additional weight loss. And if you're eating, 60 calories worth of energy drinks and gummies, oops, that deficit doesn't exist. And actually the tendency too, this is a really common thing to be aware of. The tendency is the further we go into prep and as we get lower calories, more hungry, we want to tend to add more things to our meals. And it
Mhm.
can be really easy to unintentionally add more calories than you realize. Like one example, and I know we're off topic, but whatever. One example I was talking about with a client on the phone yesterday who just started her prep was seasonings. And a really common one, a really, really common one that's very popular that is not calorie free is everything but the bagel seasoning. That is it's almost all sesame seeds. It's at least 50% sesame seeds. And sesame seeds are a fat. I mean, they're a healthy food for you, right? It's a non-processed food, just like flax seeds or chia seeds, right? It's a healthy fat source. But we all know fat is the most calorie dense macronutrient, and sesame seeds are about 60 calories per tablespoon. So if you are liberally using everything but the bagel on all of your meals, you could easily be taking in 60 plus calories extra every single day and not know it. In addition to energy drinks, gummy vitamins. Oh, I just added a little bit of, sugar-free syrup that's only 5 calories a pump. And oops, I did 4 pumps into my morning coffee. It can be really easy to add up these sneaky calories without realizing it.
Mhm. Yeah, and especially too, because like if I remember correctly, everything but the bagel seasoning really just says it has sodium in it. Like it doesn't even,
It
which
doesn't have
could
sodium?
be to the point, like it. That's what it said. At least on my Trader Joe's one, but it
Okay.
doesn't say that it has fats in it, but it has sesame seeds in it. So it's
Yeah.
like, is it trace amounts that they're like, oh, we can get away with not putting it in there,
Well,
but hey, you're still
the way it
eating.
works, the way it works. So I thought everything but the bagel had salt, but I don't use it that often, so I forget. I have it, but I don't use it that often. The way that works, so the way all of these food items that are not actually 0 calorie work is they make the serving size so small that you can round down to 0. So, for example, the serving size on that one I believe is like a quarter or an eighth of a teaspoon. So first of all, 1 tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. And then 1/8 of a teaspoon is, 1/24 of a tablespoon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the calories, and this is how it works through the FDA, if the calories are 5, like less than 5 per serving, you can round down to 0. So that's how it works. Same thing with, for example, like truffle hot sauce, where one of the main ingredients is truffle oil, right? We all know oil is about 120 calories per tablespoon. And the first 2 ingredients are like chilies and truffle oil. Again, it's not 0 calories. They made the serving size an eighth of a teaspoon for a reason, so they can round it down to 0. Or they can say, oh, there's only 5 calories, but you don't realize that, oh, if I actually use a tablespoon, it's, 5 times 24. So that's how that all works. Yeah.
So yeah, side note, extra additional information.
Yeah.
Hidden calories in prep in addition to
the things we have to think about. It's pretty wild when you think about all the little details and stuff.
100%. And that can really be what makes or breaks your transformations week over week, right? It's like whether you've plateaued or whether you think you've plateaued or you're really just consuming more calories than you're supposed to, that could be the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Crazy. And then what was the last one that you had?
Oh, the last one I think was just tips for new competitors. I know we've touched on that a lot in past episodes, but maybe we could just give like 1 or 2.
Yeah. I would say the first thing that comes up, and I actually just saw, I think it was like Dynamite D posted this. It was like 5 things not to do on peak week. One of them is comparison. Like comparison is the thief of joy. So I feel like that's the biggest one for me because I know that even still to this day, I find myself comparing myself to others because social media is just so readily available. And we have to remind ourselves that Instagram or social media is just a highlight reel, right? No one's going to post a bad photo of themselves. No one's going to post a photo where they think they look bloated or their pants are, fitting a little too tight. So they have skin, right? It's probably skin hanging over their pants. You know what I mean? Little things like that. Like no one's ever going to post things like that. They're going to post what they look best in and what they feel best in. So just really trying to distance yourself from that or just distance yourself from the habit of comparison.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, that's a great point. And another thing too is like with social media, you don't even know if what you're looking at is real. Like there are AI influencers, there are so many apps to like face tune your face, your body. So it's like you might be making yourself miserable, not even realizing that you're looking at something that doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. For first time competitors, just stick to your plan. Like that's the main tip. Just stick to your plan. Try to not overthink things. Just give your best to everything. Stick to your plan. If you fall off your plan, tell your coach right away so they at least have accurate information and know what to do from there. But give it your best. Don't get in your head because the thing is too, you're brand new. Like nobody expects you to be winning your pro card, like your first show or your first year as a competitor. You're the only person putting expectations on yourself in this. And so I think like if I look back over my past preps or competition seasons, I probably put a lot of unnecessary stress on myself at times, right? If I had just chilled out and just had fun and just been like, yeah, I love doing this. Like this is hard, but like I'm having fun and I'm going to give it my best. At a minimum, the journey would have been more enjoyable. Who knows? Maybe I would have even placed better too. So just like, don't overthink it. Just give it your best and like stick to your plan. If you have a coach, don't question them. If you chose a coach where you feel like there's some real big red flags, okay, maybe you should have done a little more research or figured things out. But for the most part, if you have a coach and you legitimately trust them, like trust them. Another thing too, nowadays, because we have so much info, people shop around for information. Like they'll DM 5 friends. Hey, here's what cardio I'm doing. Here's my meal plan. What are you doing? That stuff, that's not going to help you at all. That's just going to distract you. That's going to get you spinning your wheels. So, stick with your plan. If you have a good relationship with your coach, trust them, trust their judgment. They probably know a lot more than you about competing, like, especially if you're hiring one of these, like, Jamie D. Bernard, or you're hiring Kim Odo, or you're hiring, Dynamite D, or any of these, like, really the well-respected coaches or well-known coaches. They've been doing this for a long time. Like, they might have even been doing this longer than you've been alive. So make sure that you have that good relationship and you trust them. So that way you can trust your plan, trust them, and just stick with it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think doing your research, understanding what you're doing and why you're doing it, just because someone at your gym was like, hey, you have a great physique, you should compete. I think you'll do really well. It's like, yeah, that's a great motivator, but it's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? What is the end goal? Are you trying to do this long term? What goes into competing, right? Do you have the resources? Do you have the finances? Do you have the support? Do you have the baseline understanding of what you're doing? That way, if, say, for some reason you do pick someone who's not as qualified to be your coach, if they're telling you to do something super crazy and abnormal, do you have the common base knowledge to question, is this right for me? Am I doing the right thing? Are these protocols going to affect me negatively long term? Having some sort of base knowledge, I think, is super important instead of just going in blind and just hoping that you've picked the right person to guide you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Nothing else sticks out other than, I mean, you kind of touched on it. Just have fun, make friends, have fun, enjoy the process. Don't rush it.
Yeah, enjoy it. Cool. I think that's a good note to end on. So
Yeah. We're like trying to think of more.
yeah. And I'm like, I need another coffee. Well, actually I've switched to decaf, so I just need an actual coffee. But
Real caffeine.
yeah, I need some real caffeine. So we'll wrap it up here. As always, thank you guys for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, share with a friend, like the video. If you're listening on an audio platform, don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and still share with a friend so the podcast can grow. We appreciate you guys so much. And the more listeners we have, the better guests, the better episodes we can bring you. So as always, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.